Tillery here, the Mistress of Horror, and welcome back to my channel. Before we get started, how about you press that subscribe button, give this video a like, and ring that bell so you know when I'm uploading new videos. It's that time of the month again when I do my monthly author podcast. I have a few different topics that I'm going to be talking about this time, not just what I have going on writing-wise. Well, it's based around my writing nonetheless, because every aspect of my life is really, because it's a big part of who I am. But to get right on topic, actually, before we get on topic, I wanted to say, if you are interested in any of my works or books that I write, then I do have Fractals that's coming out soon. As you've probably seen, if you have not seen the trailer, the official trailer is up on my channel. And also the pre-order is available for ebook. Since I am publishing through KDP, they don't give you pre-order abilities for paperbacks or hardbacks. But there will be a paperback of Fractals. And in the paperback version, there will be 2 of my flash fiction shorts in there for the people who buy the paperback. So if you want to purchase the paperback, then you can wait the day the book releases, which is going to be July the 26th, which is a Tuesday. If you would like to get the ebook version as well, so you can have it be able to be read on a computer, then you can do that and pre-order it. It's only 99 cents. So very simple, basic pre-order. Not a lot of money, very cheap. And then the paperback is going to be $4.50. That's what I generally charge for my short story paperbacks. So you make a little bit of change on that. So if you would like the paperback version, then you can get that. I am actually going to be doing a giveaway for people who pre-order. So I will be releasing that video in June for the people who want to pre-order or who have already pre-ordered the ebook. And there will be a little form for you to fill out to send a receipt showing your pre-order. Usually people have picture caps or something of their order from Amazon or something like that works. But I want to do that because there's going to be a little giveaway pre-order item for people who do pre-order. So now to the podcast. There's been this month, May. May has so many holidays. They really do. One I celebrate is World Golf Day, obviously. One I show respect to is Mental Health Awareness Month. We all have people in our lives who have mental health issues, and we ourselves, we forget to take care of our mental health, which just like we take care of our bodies, we exercise, we eat healthy foods, we do different things to take care of our physical health, get checkups and all that stuff. But what do we think about our mental health? There's not enough talk about mental health, and I'm bringing it up because it's being Mental Health Awareness Month. And a lot of the author tubers and people in YouTube talk about mental health and their own mental health. And quite a few people that I know have bought some and made videos about it. And I myself have to take care of my mental health, whether I am diagnosed with certain different types of mental health ailments. So I think it's really good that people have decided they could talk about their mental health ailments that they have to combat every day, and people may not see that, or they think something else is going on with them, and it's just part of their daily life that they have to deal with themselves, that we all don't get to see. And I am one also that is the case. I have high levels of stress because of life things that I have to deal with. Everyone has stress, but that's part of your mental health awareness. Like a lot of stuff that goes on, and stress can kill. Let's not joke around about it. We know that stress is a real thing, and stress levels can get very high, and they can cause health issues. And a lot of stresses are in the mind and start messing with that. So I myself have that. I don't show it very often, but I don't feel that I don't want to push my issues on others, and a lot of people think that way. So I'm not alone in that. But I wanted to just give awareness to mental health and how it's different types of mental health and how we all have to deal with those things every single day. So I say I'm not immune to it myself. I have high, again, stress levels that give me stages of depression possibly, or stages of anxiety. So it can be tough, but people having empathy. You may not be able to understand it, but having empathy is a step in the right direction. So now we talked about mental health awareness and giving a shout out to all the people who are sharing that with others publicly and talking about it. It's good to talk about it so there be people who feel that they are alone, know that they're not. So kudos to you for that. Now, the next segment, I wanted to talk about something that's kind of funny. I actually saw a video by Vixen of Fiction, and they were doing a panel talking about Twilight. And it kind of brought me into a thought process about how people view books and or stories and or just films in general. And, I think people can't remove themselves. They're humans, so it's not too surprising. They can't remove themselves from, and they're human issues from a story that they're reading or something like that. And it was a panel of different writers and viewers, mostly writers, talking about Twilight. And most like Twilight, but of course everyone had issues with it. And I'm mostly only bringing up not to necessarily bring up that specific video, but to talk about people overall how they view stories. And you're writing a story and you're putting it out, and you don't necessarily think about how someone's going to view something you did in the story. And you're going as fictional as possible. You're talking about supernatural creatures that we do not deal with every day, that we do not have relationships with, but in these stories we do, or the characters do. And I think people place themselves in the position of the characters that are going to, with either interacting with the supernatural creatures, and then they'll start bringing up humanistic type of situations that don't apply to said situation with supernatural creature. Good example is in Twilight, how you hear about Twilight. You have the people who like Twilight and the people that dislike Twilight. And you have the people that feel like all these different things about Bella and Edward in Twilight. And then you have the people that don't feel that way. So the people that feel negatively about their relationship, let's say, they may bring up age or something like that. And they'll say like, well, I think it's gross because, Edward was 100 years old, 100-year-old vampire and stuff like that. And Bella was 17. But you can't bring up that type of conversation without bringing up the supernatural aspects of that relationship. Like, you cannot negate it. You cannot just put it in place in humanistic grounded reality. You can't do that because the story was written with those elements. So that's why I think people need to see past those things, because it's no point. It's like it shouldn't even be a part of the conversation. And you say, well, pop culture and people, being impressionable. You can't help people being impressionable. There is no way around it. There are going to be people who are impressionable, and there are going to be people who are not impressionable. That's just like a person who's in school, let's say, as an example, who friends take drugs, or friends that are legally drinking or something like that. And there's going to be these kids that are not going to drink or do the drugs, even if they're friends with these people. And then you'll have the kids that are fear peer pressure, as they say, and they want to do the drugs because they want to feel accepted by that group of people. But you'll have the other kids that do not do that, no matter how much the other ones may want them to do it or is sociable and all that stuff. So it's going to be the same thing about people who interpret something in a story. So you can't speak as if it's a grand scale of it's going to affect people and they're going to change who they are because they interpreted this. You can't control what people interpret. If you do that, you're not going to write anything. And those are the facts. So back to Twilight and that whole instance about the issue between their relationship, and then they saying like, oh, she was so, broken up about him leaving, and he was, gaslighting her when she was talking, and he was like, oh, like the way he was talking, they said he was gaslighting. I'm like, again, using human stuff. Like, that's, no matter how you try to scratch that, that's still human issues and things that humans do, and human personality traits and human acts. It still is, no matter how you slice it. I didn't even think of that at all. I was in my early 20s when I first read Twilight, an adult at this point, or somewhat adult, because let's just be honest, in your 20s, you're barely adult. But like, I just can't with that. I can't with those instances. Save those conversations for actual nonfiction stories or actual situations that need to be talked about. I'm not saying this stuff doesn't need to be talked about, but you really have to be careful of labeling these fictional stories with these issues that we should talk about in reality, and issues that exist in people that treat people that way, and people who are in these bad relationships. You're like, you're at it. Well, yeah, it's still a bad relationship. Like, besides the point, if a person is reading Twilight and that's how they're going to structure their relationships, then that's another issue, another thing we need to speak about. That's another thing we need to be able to talk with this person about, and their upbringing, their parents, all this stuff, and comes into play about a person being who they are when they reach adulthood. Yes, our entertainment and our pop culture and stuff that we look at has to do with the way we think about things and stuff like that. I'm not saying that that's not true. However, this is why people need certain people in their lives and need good structure, so they understand the differences between reading a fictional story, watching a movie, or watching a show that have characters in it that have nothing to do with you. This is your entertainment. You need to be able to separate that from who are you becoming as a person. Again, I understand that those things, we pick these things based around like who we are and things like that. But you need to be able to understand that these things are not real. They're fiction. Like, the word gives it away. It tells you. If you feel you are that impressionable, if you feel like watching these things are going to change you to fit and you're going to mold your future after these characters and all that, you may want to reevaluate the fact that maybe you can't handle fiction. Maybe you can't separate the difference. Maybe you aren't here to be entertained. Maybe you're here for support, which is fine if that's what you do, but you need to realize that's what you're doing, because it's dangerous otherwise. So when I hear people saying this stuff in a way that's so absolute, because I've heard it from different things, and we're not, again, talking about just that video. I'll just use that as an example, because most of the people on that stream liked Twilight, but of course some had issues with it, that like the ones I'm talking about. But they were talking about mostly other people, might see it this way, or that's their take, which is fine. Everybody's allowed to have an opinion, and I'm not knocking their opinion. I'm just saying that we need to really sit down and evaluate what this that will do when people treat something that's in an entertainment to work a certain kind of way. And Twilight did get beat down, but plenty of people loved it and hated it, but that's with everything. But it's just like, when I hear people's reason for disliking Twilight, I kind of chuckle. I do chuckle, because it's preposterous to me. Not that it would be to everybody else. I'm like, okay, when I watched Twilight, I was like, this is a vampire story. I couldn't care less about the age difference between the characters. That's not even a discussion to have, because he's a vampire. You can't be young. And the person is always going to be younger than them. So it wouldn't matter if the person was 40 and this vampire was whatever age. The vampire is always going to be older than the human, air quote, that they would be with in the story. They're always going to be a baby to them. They're always going to be not as mature as them. It's impossible. So bringing that up is irrelevant. Like, it doesn't even make a sense. Like, well, humans are going to relate to their situations. You need to stop doing that. You need to stop doing that with fiction. It's a fictional story. This is for your entertainment. That's it. That's it. You think when I watch a romance, I'm like, well, this is what romance is. No. When I watch a romance, I like the romantic story. And that's all there is to it. I want to see this couple and see what they go through, and I want to see them get together in some cases. It depends on the story. But I'm never like, I wish I had that romantic thing, and then I get upset that I don't, and then I try to put these characteristics that a character in a story had on the male that I'm with, or going to be with, and whatever's an example. So I don't get that. I don't do that. There are people that do that, and then they're like, I can't find the perfect woman or man or whatever for me, because my ideals have been, infected, let's say, by these romantic stories that I watch. Because I've heard people say that about romantic stuff, what they'll say about the K-dramas, like, you're expecting these Korean men to be this way because you watch a show. That's the person's fault who watching the show, because this character is fake. Granted, it's an ideal character to ideal person to someone who wrote it. Yeah, they probably wish a person could be this way, this made up way, but humans aren't perfect. And even though they write characters that are imperfect in stories, they still make up a lot of fantasy based things because it's in their head and it's the way we would want things. But that's not how things work for real. as a fiction writer, maybe I have an inside lead to this, but there's plenty of people, fiction writers, who still see things the other way. I write stories that are not grounded in my reality. They have aspects from my world because duh, that's where I'm from. But in no shape or form am I grounding it to that. Even if you see connectability in that, I don't want it to be. I have no plans for you to try to connect to the characters on the level that you think you're them, or that you expect them to react the way you do or do things that you do. That's the whole point, to escape our reality when we go into fiction. At least that's my point, and at least that's my reason why I read fiction. If I wanted to be, if I want to bring up our human issues in fiction, I wouldn't. I would just read nonfiction. That's my take on that. So I just, I just think that really assessing why you're reading fiction. I just think that that's the thing that we all need to do maybe when we read fiction. Just saying. All right, enough about that. So on to our next topic. I'm going to talk about being an indie author. Now, even though I have, published some works, and, I'm still learning. I'm still learning about being an indie author. And, I learn more as, more and more as I go on. And it's difficult being an indie author because you do have all the brains. I like having all the control, but it's also more work to do, and it's not for everyone. It's also not for the faint of heart, so to speak. So I just it's just a lot when you're an indie author, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. It just is. So you have to be ready and open minded about what you're going to come across and what's going to happen. It's just you got to be realistic. I'm a realist. Not everybody is. I'm a realist, even though I write fiction and I like fictional worlds that have nothing to do with our world. But I just being an indie author is a constant battle. Some people have it easier than others. Some people get lucky, I should say, more than others. And, people bust their ass. Like, two people can bust their ass and really be serious about it, and one can do better than the other because sometimes chance, sometimes luck in that. And you work really hard. You both can write amazing stories, but one does different than the other. And it's not that you did anything wrong. It's just sometimes timing as well. We have to admit these things. Sometimes timing, sometimes it's what people are looking for, trending, all kinds of things occur in this setting of being an indie author, or author in general, I should say. But being an indie author, you have to take on the other things that the traditional publishing house that you would go with if you were traditional would do for you. And that's not to say that they are always going to do this, or they all don't do different things, because they do. But you do have to, you're writing your story, then of course you're editing, which this is the normal thing to do. Then you have to find an editor. So then you find editors or editor team that works for you. And that's a blessing once that occurs. It took me a little while. And then you have to find a formatter, and a formatter you trust and like, and then thank goodness I have that too. And then your covers and your cover design. If you're not a cover designer, then then you have to find cover designers that fit you for your series or whatever. And then it's just a lot that you have to do all of those things. And then the marketing is another one that's really very confusing. Even I've taken classes and master classes on it. I've taken all kinds of studies on it. I've read a lot. I was in marketing myself and other businesses. I run my own businesses, which is actually a plus. But the marketing is very confusing sometimes because trying to figure out what people want to do about it, like what people are doing, because of people don't want to really pre-order stuff. So that's hard because it helps authors when people pre-order books. So people don't really want to do that. And then you have these different types of places that you're publishing through that may not, like Amazon, offer pre-orders for paperbacks and hardbacks. They're probably going to get to it one day, but they're not there yet. So then you have all these other avenues that you have to go through. Like, who am I going to publish that through? So you're going to use Ingram Spark or something like that, and they are a headache, apparently, as far as people say. But I haven't worked really with them yet, so I can't speak for that on myself yet. So it's a lot of different variables as an indie author you have to think about and be willing to take on. And it can be overwhelming for some. But I decided to make that choice, and I've taken that journey, and I've published a few things, but I didn't basic publishing and simple publishing because of it KDP. So now I'm with my series coming out, my full novel series ready to come out later this year. I'm already starting to read into Ingram Spark for real this time, so I can see how that is. You know, you got to buy your own ISBN numbers and stuff when you go through them because you have to have your own, and it's not KDP. So all those things that I am aware of and already studied, but it is a lot. So as you go on, you learn more and more, and there's all these different publishing places that you can do to do your paperback prints and all this stuff and hardbacks and blah blah blah. And you're like, okay. And then the marketing again. How do you get people to buy your book? Everyone has these go-tos of how you get people to buy your book, and then you're trying to figure out like how these traditional houses do. A lot of stuff with marketing, to be honest with you, out the gate marketing, out the gate getting your book sold, is really kind of wishy-washy and really kind of odd. And to do that, you do have to do ARC reviews. You need to do what is it? Street teams. You need people to be talking about your book, not just yourself, because you be spread thin. It's not going to work out that well. You need to get people to care, and getting people to care is a hard thing. They don't care. People mostly don't care about what you're doing. Let's just be honest. Everyone's doing their own thing, and it's not their fault. So, you may have social media followings. I have social media followings. I have different ones, different places. I've been in social media a long time, well before I even started doing my writing career. But it's still trying to get people to care. And as an indie author, you constantly learning and trying to see how do you do that. How do you do that? Getting pre-orders is the hardest thing. I wouldn't really bank much on worrying over pre-orders so much. It's what you keep doing once your book is out. Now, I would recommend marketing 3 months in advance and getting that marketing built, but don't get discouraged when you don't see a lot of pre-orders coming in for something you're putting out, because getting people to pre-order anything is very difficult because they need to get something out of it. So hence why you should do giveaways and try to do incentives, because let's just be honest, people aren't looking out for each other. You got a little group of people that you may have that look out for you, that are like, support what you do. But it's not a wide range in a lot of cases, unless you're some big name, because people like to say that I helped out or did this for this person who somebody knows. Like, that's how humans work. So again, as an indie author, you're constantly learning more and more, and so that train, that's never going to stop. You're never going to keep getting on that train. So, tipping my hat to you if you are a indie author who's giving it a go. Good luck, and I'm with you. Yeah. And the last segment of this podcast is accepting that people don't hear you. That's one that you come to realize, and that's also why you have to be the one that screams the loudest, so to speak. And that's marketing, and marketing yourself correctly. And granted, a lot of us don't know how to do that correctly. It's not exactly a cut and dry type of thing, and you have to find the way, you have to find what you need to use to market. You have to figure out for each project what's the best type of marketing, and also understanding marketing as a whole, of course, for this industry is things you just gonna have to figure out. When people come into play, we can't control exactly what people want to hear. And you can keep speaking and it just goes in one ear and out the other in a form of speaking. You may not have these people in front of you, so technically it's not in the ear per se, in person. But it's just accepting that people don't hear you so simply. You can send messages, you can email, you can post repeatedly and have a okay following, whatever the okay is to you, and still turn up empty-handed almost compared to the amount that you have yelled, so to speak. Mm. It's a tough one to accept that you have been talking this entire time and such a small amount of people have heard you. And it's a sad reality that we live in as far as a lot of people go, that people don't hear people that are, small at the time. And even if that person, let's say, becomes big or bigger, whatever that is to you, that's when people hear you. And it's that, like, they, let's compare the two. If someone who people don't know wrote a book and they told all the people that they know, they, advertised in their own ability, so, their own ability, and got very little attention with that. Like, even they have thousands, let's say, people following them. Let's go in low end, thousands or hundreds of people following them. And out of the thousands, they have about 10 people that heard them or listened, I should say, because every single one of those people heard them, but only those select 10 or 12, whatever it is, listened, because listening is a choice. People can hear all kinds of things. We can hear trucks driving by on a highway, but we don't have to listen. It's the same thing with people. When someone's saying something, you heard it, but you have to choose to listen. And seems to be a lot for people to want to listen to you. Even if they know of you, they're not getting anything out of it. And that's just the way the nature of people works. So they kind of need an incentive. Not everybody's out to be like, I helped an author out or indie author out, or I even read that genre or listen to that genre, but I don't really want to bother with yours, like, type of situation. So that's kind of the thing. I mean, sometimes it sounds cynical, but I'm speaking pure facts. That's all of, incidents I've seen, incidents I've experienced myself. And it's a hard pill to swallow for a lot of us. It's no reason to give up. There's no reason to stop. But it is something that you have to let not affect you and stop you. But be aware that it is a thing. It's not that you won't ever get people to listen, but you just have to keep going to get more to listen. Hearing is not listening. And it's tough. It is being a author, an indie author specifically, and trying to get people to listen, especially when that's your whole point. You want them to read your stories. You want people to want to read your stories. You don't really want people who have no interest in your stories. That's not getting you anywhere. So it's just a thing that you just need to be aware of, And I've become aware of it quite a long time ago. I have a background in art in general. That's like performance art mostly, and that whole community was straight poison, complete and utter poison. Yes, I had some good aspects because what doesn't? But the poison outweighed the positive, so I got away from it finally, and am much better and happier for it. But that's another podcast for another time. I think I probably will next month talk about my past art background and some of the things I went through as a performing dance artist. That was a tough time in my life. But now I have taken it to a stage that is just for me, and it's better. It's definitely better. But yes. Anyway, that's the podcast for this month, and it was a very serious one, wasn't it? But sometimes we get serious around here. Until next time, stay scared.